Alright, I usually try and stay out of this stuff because really it's none of my business. But, I have to weigh in about two things, which is 3D printing of Games Workshop products and also price hikes and really Games Workshop in the future. What kind of form is it going to be? What kind of form should it be? And all that good stuff. So here's my 2 cents, my hat in the ring, as it were. So the first part of this video is going to be, looking at what I see as problems with the company, and then the second half is going to be what the company could do to overcome these obstacles and problems that they're going to run into. And I'm going to go through that now. So if you don't want to listen to me bitch, then maybe I'll put in a chapter marker that you can jump to the more optimistic, idea driven thing. But to understand the ideas, maybe we should delve into the problems first. You got to remember my interaction with Games Workshop. I was a reseller and a big customer back in the late 90s. And I was in Germany, and I remember they were pushing to get the German markets. And a good friend of mine who was German actually moved to Nottingham to be one of their telephone representatives for Germany. So I got some background. Now, it's a long time ago now. But, you watch the evolution of a company, and sometimes you just, go, no! So let's get to the basics of where they are right now. And I own my own company. I'm not an expert, and I don't have all the information in front of me. But from what I see and from just my gut instinct, here goes with a couple of issues that to me stand out. First one that to me is extremely apparent is because of their growth, they've become basically a shareholder corporation. They're extremely shareholder friendly, and that means that they're not customer friendly as they should be because their onus is on getting a return for their shareholders. That's their drive. Now, if you don't agree with that, let's look at some numbers. So, for example, if we look at it as of February 17th, 2023, the S&P 500 dividend yield is about 1.64%. Games Workshop's current dividend yield is 3.92%. So they're giving back quite a bit of money to shareholders. And my problem with that is, no, it's good. Everybody makes money. Everybody's happy. Except that to achieve that, they're putting the prices up. And they'll put it on all kinds of different things like, oh, the cost of this and the cost of that and yada, yada, yada. But what they're not telling you is that we have to raise these prices to keep our shareholders happy and their dividends up. And guess who's paying for that? Which I find a little, well, it's not unethical. I just find it a little disingenuous. But a lot of companies are doing that. In the current crisis, gas and oil companies are doing it. Everything's through the roof and everybody's broke and they're making record profits. So I guess that's capitalism at its best. Now, in return for that, they say, well, our quality is the highest. I guess what they're looking for is a niche where they aim to be the Rolls Royce of miniature gaming companies, with high quality and high premiums for their product. The only problem is, Rolls Royce is now owned by BMW. And, so obtaining that is a good goal, but putting everything, we're just going to keep the prices up to make it an elite company, your sales are going to drop just on that. Now, there's other issues that are going to make them drop, but I will almost guarantee their sales of, per unit sales are probably down over what they used to be, and they're going to keep going down. The other problem I see that they do, for example, and this is just one, they took down a lot of fan videos from YouTube. And these videos were extremely good. The amount of hours that must have gone into those. And they took them down because they were releasing Warhammer Plus. So now they're in competition with their own fans, and which is never a good thing. And as an example on that, lately Hasbro just lost value on their shares, and even the Bank of America said don't invest in this because they have just peed off their clients to such a high degree with the open license debacle, with the D&D stuff. So when Games Workshop does that, taking down fan videos, banning videos and putting prices up. I mean, they're butting heads with their fans. So to offset that negative, they have to keep their dividends high because people are like, well, maybe they're on the downtrend, but no, look at their dividends just went up again. And to keep the high dividends, they got to put the prices up. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but that seems to me a cycle that may be happening. The other thing that is hitting them and will continue to hit them is basically it's the Napster effect. So their products are becoming electronic products. They're STL files. And there are so many really good proxies out there now, and the quality of the proxies is really high. The price of the proxies is really low, and they can't compete, basically, with that. They can keep taking them down, and people are just rewording the name of the model, and they're changing the model enough to get around copyright issues. And we'll get onto that on the IP part later. But really, their IP on a lot of stuff is really thin. The only thing they really have the rights on is a name. So I can build a Terminator lookalike that's very close to a Necron and call it something else. And hey presto, they can't say, well, that's a copy of their product because their product is a copy of someone else's product. So that's their biggest weakness. And, they can't fight it forever. Just as the music companies, they fought Napster and won, but at the end of the day, they spent so much money doing it, and the genie was already out of the bottle. And then the music companies had to start doing streaming services and licensing, and it changed the whole industry. And I see that coming very quickly, a lot quicker than I think Games Workshop think it's going to happen. And again, that one of their big weakness is everything that Games Workshop has is pretty much IP theft in itself. I can't. I mean, there's elves in space, there's orcs in space. They rename them and they can copyright the name, but they can't copyright the idea of orcs. I mean, it's a Tolkien thing. You take them, they're in Dungeons and Dragons, they're in, World of Warcraft. You cannot copyright the idea of an orc, it seems, or an elf, or all of these things. They're Necrons, the Terminators. They're the Tyranids are alien. It's all taken from. So even Chaos is from Michael Moorcock. And everything is grounded on someone else's IP. So they're on thin ice. All they can do is rename it, give it a twist, and say this is now ours. Where originally there's still an original product that's so close that they can't claim the idea as a whole. So I guess what do they do about that? I mean, if that's the situation I was in with a company that had all this money, let's say, there are some solutions that they should be addressing these issues. And there's two main things that they should be doing, in my opinion. And I don't have all the information in front of me. I'm just looking at this outside looking in. And also it's none of my business, and this is just my opinion. So, take it for what it's worth. But the first thing I would do is I would shift my focus. I mean, the physical miniature sales, not the production, but the sale of physical miniatures is going to decline. You cannot help that. You're going to price yourself out in the market, so if people want physical miniatures, they're going to buy proxies from somewhere else. For example, look at Mantic, how much they've grown, because the price of their miniatures is much lower. So if you shift your focus away from the physical miniatures, you're going to have to shift it to something else where you're strong in. And although I said their IP is weak, they do have a really good IP. So if they shift their focus to their intellectual properties, so because all their content has been renamed and copyrighted, they have years of lore, history, and their strongest thing is that they have a distinct style, which is their bedrock for selling minis, but it also could be their bedrock for their IP. Streaming channels are just screaming for content at the moment. We got the Henry Cavill thing going to Amazon, for example. Now, if they concentrate on this, they are going to increase their other sales through engagement of new fans or existing fans. They can also expand their range of licensed products. For example, Star Wars is all about product merchandising. And they're already 3/4 of the way there. They have the IP, they have the style. You've got some fans. I know it's a niche area, but if you concentrate on your IP, make it bigger. Your merchandising, everything from packed lunches to backpacks, not miniature stuff. Although this will also increase the idea of gaming if they can get the entry point down, which they don't have right now. To get into Warhammer 40k, for example, it costs so much. Most people are like, hell no. Or they do it through the back door, like I did when I came back, and go through 3D printing to get the models, and then they sell the books, and that's all they're going to sell because no one wants to pay that much for models. Well, very few people. I don't say no one. There are a lot of fans out there that are very devoted, and that's good. Whatever trips your trigger. But the biggest change they are really going to have to make, because it's going to kill them in the end, they've got to embrace 3D printing. And, how does a miniature company embrace 3D printing? Well, the first thing is they should be. They've got so many out of production models, and what they could be doing is licensing those to third parties. There are lots of people that will, at the moment they're it's all dark web stuff. It's all, black market stuff. If they would license it and they just got something for something they're not selling at the moment. So, even if they get 50 cents, it's better than zero. You have to remember too that their overheads are pretty much zero. I mean, unless they don't have STL files. So, all they've got to do is pay somebody to sculpt in or change whatever they have got into an STL product. The other thing that I can't believe they haven't thought of is having Games Workshop branded 3D printers. And they can produce those either in-house or license them to, another company like Anycubic or whatever. Now, by doing that, what they can do then is build in an electronic ID and an encryption. So then what you could do is have website direct print from website to machine, kind of like Glowforge uses. And then it's fully encrypted, and you pay for the print, however they want to set that up. So they know the size of the build plate, so they could say, all right, our build plate's going to be big enough for, let's say, 10 Space Marines and all their parts. So you could buy 10 Space Marines and print them off, or 1 Space Marine, or pick a mix, whatever you want. Put it on the plate, hit print from their website, and your machine just prints it. That way, there are no physical STLs that people can share, and if it's pay per print, if you've got a guy with a printer and he buys an STL, he can print for all of his mates and they lose all that money. Well, if it's pay per print, no. But the advantage of that being is they're only selling electronic goods. Very little overhead. It's just server and stuff like that. So they can start selling STL models, and it's up to them which ones they choose to be able to be printable. But then all of a sudden you can start buying models, much cheaper. And again, they'll sell stuff that they normally wouldn't sell, and people wouldn't need to go to proxies. They could have official GW ones. The printer would do a certain quality that they've stipulated in the design, and the STLs would have a certain quality that they've stipulated in the design. So, they keep an eye on the quality and the amount that they're selling. Now, if you take that idea and expand it out, they can have things like web-only specials of STLs, or web-only specials of physical models to drive sales. They could have a monthly subscription, like a Patreon thing, where you get so many models per month, which gives them a monthly income and a subscription, which basically I think is what Warhammer Plus was supposed to be, except that their production is going to be a lot less, their cost of production. Also, people like Mantic, when they bring out a new line, they put it on Kickstarter. So that gets funded, their new line gets funded before they go into production, full production and stuff. Games Workshop could put out a new faction and see how many people download models for that faction or who like that faction without even producing one model. And then they could start bringing in, if they want to do the models or however they want to figure that out. So really the question for Games Workshop is, do they want to continue selling one thing for $100 or 50 things of equal quality for $5? I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. Anyway, that's my 50 cents. This video went on way longer than I thought it was going to. What's your ideas? I mean, I'm probably overlooking some stuff. My logic may be faulty here and there. Put in what you think. Is it a good idea for them to embrace 3D printing? What do you think is going to happen if they don't? Where should they go with their IP? I mean, they have it. So, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And thanks for listening.